Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we are moving on to our next position of heavy focus in this upcoming 2024 NFL Draft. We are moving on to left guard. And I think our need at the left guard position is very clear and obvious. I don't think I need to explain it. We literally don't have one right now. Damian Lewis, who was our left guard last year, is a free agent. We don't really have a backup left guard. I guess it would be Phil Haynes, who is also a free agent. Evan Brown can play left guard. He's also a free agent. So if the season started right now, I guess we just have a empty space on the field where the left guard would go. I literally don't know who would do it. I guess you bump Stone Forsythe over there and just hope he doesn't get killed. But realistically, you're going to need some left guards. And I don't know if we're going to be able to address it very much in free agency, so I feel like we're going to do it in the draft. I don't think Damian Lewis is the kind of left guard that Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff want in their offense, so I think bringing him back is not really an option. I don't think bringing back Phil Haynes is a very good option. Evan Brown is a center who can kind of sort of hack it at guard if he has to, so not a good option either. I'm looking to figure out that guard spot long term. If there's one thing I want to come away with in this offseason, it's a left guard that I feel really good about for the next 10 years. Like maybe not Steve Hutchinson level, that's a little unreasonable, but I want a really good left guard. Somebody who I look at and go, that is going to give us upper level left guard play for the next decade. So, this first video is going to cover the first round left guards, and the way I see it right now, there are two. I think there are two left guards who will go in that first round. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when you're talking about offensive linemen, there's always going to be a little bit of uncertainty about where the player lands. You've got left tackles who end up in the NFL at right tackle. You've got left tackles who end up at left guard. You've got left guards who end up playing center. You've got right guards who end up playing center. You've got right tackles who end up playing right guard. There's a ton of stuff that happens with offensive linemen, and it really depends on who drafts them, where the need is for that team, and what the team's vision is for that player. So understand that when we talk about some of the guys in this video, there's going to be some belief that the player ultimately ends up at a different position. Like I can tell you right now, our first guy here today in this video, Troy Fautanu, he might end up as a left tackle or a right tackle. So be aware. That being said, I feel like Troy Fautanu's best position in the NFL is going to be at left guard. And we've watched a lot of him over the last couple years because he's been one of the best players on the Washington Huskies. Going to be 23 when the season starts. Measurables were good at the combine, 6'4", so not too tall, which you don't want in a guard. 317 pounds, pretty good weight, pretty reasonable. 34.5-inch arms, which was longer than I expected, which does tell me he can hack it at tackle a little bit in the NFL at least. I thought he was going to go in there and his arms were going to be like 32.5 inches, maybe 33. Then I think tackle in the NFL would have been pretty tough to do. But 34.5-inch arms means he could do it. Also 9.5-inch hands. His testing was amazing. Everything was in the 91st percentile or higher. 5'0", 140, 1'7", 110 yard split, 32.5-inch vertical, 9', 5" broad. All of those numbers are incredibly good for a interior offensive lineman. So you look at that stuff and you do go, this guy might be able to be a tackle. These are the testing numbers of an NFL tackle. I still think that Fautanu will do better as a guard. And I also think that in Seattle, of course, we would view him as a guard because we have our left tackle. But for other teams out there, if they get Fautanu in the draft, any other team that gets him, they might say, you're our left tackle or you're our right tackle. Something to keep in mind. All the big boards now have him in the first round. Only PFF has him in the top half, though, except for CBS. They still have him in the late second. I think they're lagging a little behind there. The Combine boosted him clearly into the first round, I think. The aggregate has him at 24. I think that by the time we get to the draft, he's going to be in the top 20. I think he'll be top 20 by the time the draft gets here because his combine was just so good. It's not just the numbers. It's how he looked in the drills. Over the last 2 years, his PFF grade has been good, although I will say not stellar. He has allowed 2 sacks, 5 QB hits, and 31 QB hurries, which is a little bit more than you would like in terms of just raw, like, pressure numbers, which is part of the reason why I'd like to see this guy at guard, because some of his issues as a player will go away when you move him to guard and he doesn't have to worry about the edge as much. So the pros with Fautanu are very obvious. He's got incredible testing numbers for a guy who's probably going to play inside. I think that he will serve as a reserve tackle on both sides. So if you get him, not only are you getting an awesome left guard, you're getting a capable backup left tackle and right tackle if you have to bump him out for a game or two. He's got great footwork, and he's also a great fit for zone. He plays well in space. He plays well pulling across the line. He can do all those things. He's got good technique when he maintains a block. Once he latches on, he's really good at finishing the rep, really good at making sure he finishes the play to maximize the potential gains by the offense. He's good mirroring pass rushers. He latches really well. When he gets his hands on you, he doesn't let you go without holding, by the way. Of course, that's obviously key. And he's a very powerful blocker. There's a lot to like about him. He brings so much stuff to the table. The strength, the mobility, the technique. There's so much stuff to like with Fautanu. And it took me a while to warm up on him, but he really impressed me as this season went on, because obviously I'm watching every Huskies game. And to me, Fautanu was clearly the third best guard prospect in this draft to start the season. And now I think he's the best. The testing numbers just put him over the top. But even before the combine, I was thinking he was up there. I do think he can improve a little bit with his hand placement, minor technique to clean up there. His arm length, his arms are long, but there were some reps, because remember, at Washington, he was the left tackle, where it didn't look like he had that kind of reach, and you could kind of beat him around the edge because of that. So he's going to have to learn how to get the most out of his arm length in the NFL, if that makes sense. Sometimes he's a little overly aggressive, and he ends up off balance because of it, like when you lunge, when you bend at the waist instead of the knees. You don't want to be doing that stuff as an offensive lineman. And this isn't really a problem with Fautanu, but it's a problem with the way he might be perceived. There might be some teams out there that are looking at him as a blue-chip left tackle, and they might draft him as a left tackle, which means he goes way too high. Because blue-chip left tackles they can go in the top 5. Now, I don't think Fautanu's going to go in the top 5, but this might be a situation where some team that needs a tackle takes him in the top 20, and the Seahawks are sitting there thinking, we cannot afford to spend our 16th overall pick on a guard, so we just have to let it go, because to us he would be a guard. So that's not really a problem with him, but I'm worried a little bit that some team is going to say, this guy can play tackle, let's draft him as a tackle. So to me, he's clearly the best guard prospect in the draft after the prodigious combine that he had. He's got almost everything you could want in an elite prospect. The stuff that doesn't come out so well is stuff that can be pretty easily fixed. The main problem with Fautanu really is that he might be too good. Somebody might take him too early because they view him as a tackle. But for me personally, I like this guy so much as a tackle prospect. If I have to take this guy in the middle of the first round at 16, I'm willing to do it. The potential's just off the charts here. Like, I knew he was going to test well. I didn't think he was going to test this well. So if Fautanu's the pick at number 16, I'm totally happy with that. I'm not going to say it would be a steal, but I'm going to say it would be fair value. Okay, there's one other guard prospect that is currently being considered as a first-round guy. It's Barton of Duke. And this one is also a little bit complex, because there are a lot of people that think that Barton ultimately ends up as a center in the NFL. They think that'll be his best position. For the moment, I still look at him as a guard. I definitely don't see him as a tackle. I don't think he's going to hack it as a tackle in the NFL. I think he has issues that showed up in college that won't show up if you move him to guard, but there are a lot of people out there who think that he may ultimately land at center, which I feel like that changes the value a little bit, because we haven't seen him totally do it yet. We've seen a little bit of Fautanu at left guard. Barton, we only saw him at mostly left tackle and a little bit of left guard, never at center. So I feel like that would change things a little bit. But 22 years old, 6'5", 313 pounds, 32 and 7/8 inch arms, 9 and 3/8 inch hands. All the big boards have him in the first, except for CBS has him in the mid-second. Walter Football has him in the early second. Aggregate has him right at the back end of the first round, which is kind of where I expect him to go at this point. Over the last couple years, put together really good football. Last year, he was playing hurt, and he also lost his quarterback. So his performance did suffer a significant amount, but his pass protection remained solid. Allowed 2 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons, and a total of 17 quarterback hurries. 0 quarterback hits outside of the sacks. Kind of notable there. But it's easy to fall in love with Graham Barton, I think. He's smart and cerebral in how he plays the position. He understands how to pick up stunts, understands how to pick up twists. He's aggressive in how he drives through and finishes his blocks. So he's got the brains and he's got the brawn, which you often do not find with these offensive linemen. The fact that he's so experienced playing offensive line at Duke has obviously been a big benefit to him now that he's entering the NFL, even though he's only going to be 22 when the season starts. Still very experienced. Really good at using his hands, uses his hands extremely well. His hand placement is on point. He's another guy who should be a great fit in his zone scheme. He didn't test at the combine, but he moves very well in space when he's blocking downfield. You rarely see him out of control. Has great body control. Most of his flaws will be heavily diminished if he moves inside at the NFL level, which I haven't seen anybody talk about Graham Barton as a tackle. Everybody talks about him as a guard or a center. So I think that a lot of the issues that he faces as a player will go away once he gets to the NFL, and he doesn't have to worry so much about protecting the blind side and protecting the edge. So he does have a little bit of a propensity to get beat inside as well, which is why some people think that he'll end up landing at center, I think. So notable. I think that changes the value a little bit, although at the end of the day, if you're getting a great player, then you're getting a great player. It's just worth noting that if you take a guy like Graham Barton and you also, say, sign a great center in free agency for a lot of money, that could create a logjam where you expect Graham Barton to be the left guard and maybe he can't hack it there, but ends up moving to center. Then you've got like, okay, what do we do here? It's a possibility. There are some consistency issues with his pass protection. I think he can get beat on the outside, which is why I think it's important to move him to guard. When he loses the rep, he struggles to reclaim it. Like there are some guys who can get beat and then they find a way to get back on top in the rep. And Graham Barton struggles with that. Like I'm thinking about Osiris Torrance last year. He was a guy who would start to get bull rushed and then he would just re-anchor really well doing the frog jump. Like Graham Barton struggles with that kind of stuff. And the way he plays, he's probably going to attract a few too many holding calls. He does tend to get a little bit grabby. He does tend to get a little out of position, and then he grabs trying to make up for it. But overall, I think this is a really interesting prospect, a very appealing mixture of high football IQ and good physicality. I think that he will be a Pro Bowl caliber player once he's moved inside. I don't think it's going to take that much development. There's going to be a little bit to work on with his pass protection. But overall, this is relatively close to a finished product. I think that he'll fit in with a zone scheme. He'll fit in with a gap scheme. He can block with power. He can block on the move. He's got good agility, lateral quickness. He can do it all. So I would not be against taking him at the back end of the first. I don't like him as much as Fautanu because Fautanu is more of a freak athlete. And overall, I just think that he's a little bit more of a sure stud in this league. And he also has the tackle versatility that Graham Barton probably doesn't. But Graham Barton, I would be okay taking near the back end of the first round because there is still a lot to like here. All right, so those would be the two guys who I think will go in the first round, who I project to land at left guard. Let me know what you think about them. Let me know how you feel about them. We're going to do some other guys in a video in a couple of hours. See you guys then. Go Hawks. And that's what I got for the top of the top at the position this year.